Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Great Movie Show. My name is Adam and I'm your host for this week's episode. I'm joined by regular co-hosts Lloyd and Dave.
Hello.
We're three guys that love movies and love talking about movies. We've created this show to do just that and share our thoughts with you. Each week we'll focus mainly on one film but also have some regular features and plenty of random thoughts. This week we're looking at Die Hard. Most of you probably know it. But do you really know it? We want to get inside the film, offer our views, rate it, and of course answer the all-important question, is it a Christmas film? Die Hard was released in the US on July 15th, 1988, and in the UK on February 3rd, 1989. It was brought to us by 20th Century Fox from producer stalwarts Lawrence Gordon and Joel Silver. It was directed by John McClane. The same team had delivered the brilliant flick Predator a year earlier. Die Hard was based on the novel Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, and a number of the iconic scenes are straight out of the book. It cost around $28 million to make, and $5 million of that was spent on Bruce Willis. A lot of money for an actor famous at that time for being a wisecracking private detective in the TV comedy drama Moonlighting. And the studio was reportedly concerned that Willis wasn't box office enough. So much so that the original posters didn't even have Willis on them. There was hardly any advertising, and it only opened to 21 theatres in 20 cities. They needn't have worried, though. Within 2 weeks, it was in 1,200 cinemas across the US and ended up grossing more than $140 million. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and even selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress in 2017 for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It has spawned 4 further films, including the first sequel, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, which made twice as much at the box office. And of course, it catapulted Willis into movie stardom. It's also reportedly still Bruce Willis's favourite film that he's starred in. Welcome to the Party, Pal is the title of today's episode, not just because it's an iconic line from the film, but because despite being a modern-day classic known by all, until last week, one of the three of us hadn't even seen it, and now he has. So Dave, welcome to the Party, Pal.
Yeah.
How have you avoided Die Hard all this time?
Not necessarily intentional. Just never actually had any desire to watch it. I think as you get older, and the more people go on about how you should watch it, probably part of me naturally wants to push against that and therefore not watch it. You know what I'm like? But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of action movies, to be honest, and 80s action movies is something that, you know, I'm aware of them, but that just kind of washed over me at the time.
So how many times have you now watched it?
Once. So I have actually tried to watch Die Hard a couple of times in the last few years. I actually went back and checked my WhatsApp messages between you two and I noticed that I attempted to watch it in Christmas 2019, turned it off. I did the same thing Christmas last year, made another attempt at watching it and turned it off. So I don't know exactly what it is about the movie that I just didn't find sufficiently entertaining that I turned it off. So obviously I have watched it now. I made an attempt to sit and watch it right to the end, which I have. So obviously I also know a lot of the references and quotes. You know, I do live on planet Earth. Obviously, I'm aware of what the movie is about generally and the characters and some of the more famous quotes. I knew it was about a cop in news called John McClane. He's saving a building full of hostages, a big building called the Naktomi Plaza. I knew I had Bruce Willis in it, obviously, and Alan Rickman. And I knew it involved some kind of terrorists. Although I understand now that they're not necessarily terrorists, so you may go on to talk about that at some point. I think I need to refer to them as criminals instead of terrorists. Terrorism was some kind of cover story, I think. And the bad guys, I said, played by Alan Rickman, is called Hans Gruber. That's what I did know. And pretty much that is the entire plot, to be fair. But not bad, never haven't seen it. What I didn't know, what I found out when I watched it, so he's travelled to LA from New York to surprise his wife, called Holly. She's at the Christmas party, which is at the Naktomi Plaza. He's helped out by the cop called Sgt Al Powell. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's
not test.
He helps him out basically remotely through a CB, and there's also a limo driver called Argyle who kind of low level helps him out a couple of points, I think. TV reporter in it, played by William Atherton, who was also in Ghostbusters, played Walter Peck / Pencil Neck. And then also the deputy chief of police called Dwayne Robinson.
Dwayne T. Robinson.
Played by the guy from Breakfast Club, is it?
Paul Gleason, yeah absolutely.
Yes, with the balls, so you're going to get the horns.
Yeah. And then I guess the other real characters of note is there's 2 FBI agents in it that are both called Robinson for no apparent reason. I think it's some kind of joke.
No, they're not. They're not. They're called Johnson.
Johnson and Johnson.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're both called Johnson. Yeah.
That's amazing. I like the fact you took that from the movie.
Did you watch it, Dave, or did you just like read Wikipedia and think we wouldn't notice?
No, it's probably because the police chief was called Robinson. I've just inadvertently copied it.
I'm Agent Robinson. This is Agent Robinson. No relation.
We're the Robinsons.
And did you spot who Special Agent Johnson was? That it was Robert Davey, who also stars as one of the Fratellis in The Goonies.
Yeah, that was in my elaborated notes later on. But
is this the truncated version?
Yeah. This Brilliant. Is the
overview. His dissertation monologue is a separate podcast.
I like it. It wasn't homework. We didn't want to.
But that's what I didn't know. That's basically what I learned when I watched it. In terms of whether I enjoyed the movie, I'm assuming you'd want to know whether I enjoyed it or not. I did enjoy it.
Don't care. We want to know.
No, I enjoyed it. I did think it was a little slow at times. But then again, I understand, given the plot, that it was kind of like a cat and mouse thing with him and the criminals.
Which bits? Elaborate there, Dave. Which bits do you think were slow?
Well, there was a lot of him kind of sneaking around, wasn't there, in kind of ventilation ducts and climbing up elevator shafts and hiding out on the unfinished floor.
I've never thought any of those bits were slow though, because he normally gets discovered within about a minute and a half.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it wasn't as kind of. I don't know. I just thought it was a bit slow. That was my genuine reaction when I was watching it.
It's the longest of all the movies as well. It's the out of all of them, I think it is. It's over 2 hours long. Of all the Die Hard movies, I think Die Hard 3, which you might not have seen, Dave, that starts a lot quicker. Whereas I think both Die Hard 1 and Die Harder, they've got a kind of 10-15 minute lead in, and I think there's a lot more suspenseful stuff. Whereas, they really go on the third one to town right at the start, and then there's little pockets of action. And I think that there's probably a good argument to say for the 1980s, that was the style. Whereas for the sort of 90s, and certainly more in the last 10-15 years, I'd say, is we all expect to have a massive setup to start with. Big explosions, big action thing. And then it dies down and they tell us a little about the sequence, about what's going to go with the first sort of 15-20 minutes of the movie. Then you get another action sequence. Whereas this was, I think it sort of ebbs and flows. So if you haven't watched it in the 80s or the 90s, you probably have kind of not blooded yourself enough on that kind of arc, maybe. I don't know.
Do you not think, though, that it might feel a little bit slow because they intentionally try and create the feeling of real time for Die Hard? So he gets picked up from the airport. There's a very deliberate sort of like twilight going to dusk scene when he's going into Naktomi building, very golden and red as the sun's going down. As he's up to the party floor, it's nighttime. So that automatically creates a feeling of this is, it's one segment, it's an evening. And then it's obviously not 100% real time, but it kind of creates that flow.
Did you know I think was the novel or the movie was originally going to be set over 3 days, but they decided they wanted it set over one night instead? Yeah,
apparently, although it's like the only similarity with Shakespeare, I think John McClane had seen Midsummer Night's Dream and he wanted to set it over one night. I think, the novel's quite interesting because there's a lot of punctuated parts of the film that are in there, like the throwing the bomb down the shaft, the lift shaft. I think also having the gun strapped to his back at the end. Yeah. But the novel's really dark compared to that. I mean, I think it was his daughter rather than his wife that he's visiting. She dies. And then you're left at the end of the book with basically, he's probably going to die of all his injuries, which obviously doesn't happen if you've seen the sequels. So they've changed a couple of things, but I think they've tried to keep. I think actually you mentioned it before. One of the things that's really positive and really good about the movie that they changed from the book is they've changed it from terrorists, which John McClane thought was too like harsh, a sort of arc, and they changed it to bank robbers effectively or thieves, but pretending to be terrorists. And I think that gave it a really clever sort of side to it because it created the whole kind of, I don't know, attitude of Hans Gruber. So you kind of understood his sort of ego and his intellect and the way he had fashioned it to give this kind of, everything happened the way he expected it to happen, even with John McClane involved, until about 2/3 of the way through the movie.
The fight scenes, I remember thinking they weren't as choreographed as maybe what we're used to now. But I don't know if that is actually a fair comparison or a fair point, because now I realise, having watched it, and also I've watched Die Hard 2 now, that probably that's just the way John McClane fights. He's more of a brawler, isn't he? So it's never going to be particularly choreographed. I just think it was around about the same time as like Van Damme and all that was starting to come up, wasn't it? And the kind of really choreographed stuff.
Van Damme's karate, isn't he? He's a karate expert, a cop from New York. You know, these days everyone knows bloody jiu-jitsu. Every walk of life. But then it was more specialist, wasn't it? So a cop from New York would be. He knows how to block. He's had his basic training, and he can throw some punches and maybe do a sweep or something, or do like a chokehold. But that's going to be the limit of him. So it's quite real as a cop, isn't it? A cop from the 80s from New York is going to fight like that and have some lucky breaks and have some not so lucky ones.
And I think that's one of the things that they were going for with the movie, is that it was around the time of, Arnie in Predator, Sly Stallone in Rambo, taking on the world, taking on these huge situations, whereas this was a normal guy, as it were, that in a situation he doesn't want to be in, the whole reluctant hero kind of storyline, wanting to, help save his wife. Obviously, they repeated that in another way in the second movie, but I think that's probably why it's not particularly well choreographed, because it was meant to be like any one of us fighting to make sure that we could get away so that we could help save our wife.
I think it stuck out to me when I was watching Die Hard 2. There's obviously what's the name of the Colonel, played by William Sadler. There is a properly choreographed fight scene in that movie because he does some kind of martial art naked at the start.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the need for nakedness at the start, but
Yeah,
and Dave was watching naked too.
Yeah.
I suppose you can't Melvin him, David, if he's if he's naked, can you? You Melvin Death, dude.
So I also, when I was watching it, and I don't know if anyone else has ever got this vibe. Obviously, I've never seen Die Hard, so it was literally my first impression. But I remember thinking it was quite reminiscent of The Dark Knight. The start of The Dark Knight with the heist. I genuinely thought Gruber was going to start knocking off his henchmen when they'd done their jobs. I was waiting for him to turn around with a silencer and just double tap in the head. But obviously that wasn't the case.
Well, it's interesting. He's not quite as ruthless as that, but I quite like the fact, when Holly comes to speak to him, and she's sort of like the nominated person, she said, there's a pregnant woman and she's got a sore back, so can have a sofa, that kind of thing. He knows that he's going to kill all those people, but he's intelligent enough to know that he needs to keep the peace for that period of time. He needs to keep them all happy, ticking over, going to the toilet, making sure that nobody's creating any particular scene, so that at some point they're on the roof so he can blow the roof. So I think he's cold and calculated, but he does talk to, I think, Theo at one point, and says, when they realise what's happening, we're going to be sitting on the beach earning 20%. So he has got some kind of friendships, I suppose.
He does appreciate an intelligent person as well, because when Holly comes to him with those first sort of questions, not necessarily demands, there's a pregnant woman out there, she needs to lie down, because he says sort of like, which idiot put you in charge, and she's like, well, you did when you killed Takagi. And then she said a few other things. He said, he chose his number two well, or words to those effect. He chose well, or they chose well. So he's already quite impressed with her tact in the face of adversity and a gun, basically. So he does have that sort of characteristic. He does respect sort of strength and intelligence, I guess.
Yeah, and he kind of unravels a little bit, doesn't he, when she says you're nothing more than a common thief, and he like dives at her and says, I'm an exceptional thief, because she's questioned his kind of master plan and interferes with his ego quite a lot.
Yeah, very Sheriff of Nottingham when he does that. When he loses his rag a little bit, he was very much Prince of Thieves character.
Well, I didn't
not
realize.
Tony Robinson. Made Marion and a Merry Man.
Made Marion and a Merry Man. No.
Well, look, I hadn't realised until a couple of weeks ago that was his first role, and that the only reason he was in it is because I think it was John McClane and Joel Silver had been to see Dangerous Liaisons on the stage or something, and they were so impressed with him. And said,
was he?
He was immediately typecast because he was known as being the baddie, wasn't he? And so Robin Hood.
Yeah, Prince of Thieves, brilliant baddie in that, wasn't he? And then he's just kind of followed his career, and then all the way up to sort of penultimate films, final films as well, like the Harry Potter ones, where he was kind of a goodie slash baddie slash goodie. Spoiler alert. So yeah, he kind of did follow that a bit.
So come on, Dave. Who's your least favourite character?
Least favourite character?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who annoyed you or grated on you, or?
Well, I guess the guy that's supposed to grate on you, so that's kind of like a positive review for him, which is the Dwayne Robinson fella, innit?
Apparently, he had such bad reviews from a couple of like really well-known critics in the States, and they sort of changed their mind, because I think they must have realised, like we all do, it's an exceptional performance. He's meant to be like that. It's like in a lot of movies, the army generically make mistakes or are stupid. It's always or the police make mistakes, and it's this one cop or it's this one soldier who realizes how to deal with things. But he's a complete, I don't know, he's the complete opposite of Al Powell, who seems to get it straight away. He understands who John McClane is, and but what's really funny is when he's sucking up to the FBI agents, he's using all the information that he's criticized moments earlier. So he's saying, I don't know, maybe they'll be on the kind of 30th floor, and there might be maybe 6 or 7 that have already died. So I think he's a brilliant character. But yeah, he annoys me.
Doesn't the security guard on the front desk annoy you? Where John McClane goes in, he's like, type whoever you're trying to see into this computer screen. So he does the touch screen, which in the 80s was amazing, wasn't it? Anyway, does it, sees she's not Holly McClane, so goes in Gennaro, right, finds her, 30th floor. He goes, they're the only people left in the building. Go to the, well, if they're the only people left in the building on the 30th floor and I've come in to see someone, just send me straight to the 30th floor. Don't make me go for a bloody computer to just like, he wound me up. But he will get his comeuppance very soon.
And that's going to be one of my questions, Dave. Already answered, because I was going to say who do we see killed first, and it's the annoying, quite rude security guard, isn't it?
All right. Bear in mind, I've only seen the movie once.
And then second security guard, who the baddies have used the worst or the best, stun grenade in the world, because he goes like for 15 seconds and then goes down.
The exploding hockey puck. Absolutely brilliant.
That stuns him for like you could go up and like just push him over for the length of time he was stunned there, and rugby tackle him. You didn't have to even shoot him.
The thing is, Dave, you haven't had the opportunity to do so, but I guarantee that Lloyd has, much like I. We have made fists with our toes when we've been into a hotel, a carpet, out being on a plane, and it does work. So who knew?
But that was the whole reason why McClane's just got no shit. He must be cursing that fella on the plane. He's running around this whole building, running through glass and going, that dickhead next to me on the plane. So I hadn't listened to him. I'd have shoes on. I'd be quicker. I wouldn't have cut up feet. Be able to kill more terrorists.
Well, he's got rubber feet, so it's not all bad.
Yeah, you do see them if you look for them, you see them. Just like the bad body doubles as well. But no, I think it's good because they created a situation where somebody is in turmoil throughout the film, aren't they? Because and the going back to the shooting the glass. I'm sure Lloyd will do his best German impression in a moment.
Schießt den Fenster. Shoot the glass.
I was reading they spent something like $150,000 on glass, just because they just broke a lot of it. But that sort of idea of in a movie, somebody going from start to finish and not having a scratch on them, Predator, even they quote in it. Yeah. So whereas in Die Hard, the whole point of it was this person's getting worse and worse throughout, and genuinely they are like, you think they're dying. You know, they're not going to live to the end of the movie, and I think that's the thing that's always sort of impressed me about it. That he goes through all these things, but you're not in that position like a Tom Cruise movie where you know he's going to be standing at the end. And, you know, obviously the difficulty for you, Dave, is you're watching it when you know that there's a Die Hard 4 and, all that sort of stuff. So you know that ultimately he's going to be successful in the first movie.
So the first theme I picked up on quite a lot was East versus West. So, I mean, you've got US versus Germany, first and foremost. US versus Japan. You've got the Pearl Harbor reference in there.
Yeah.
You've got California versus New York. That's a kind of recurring theme as well. So there's quite a lot of, I picked up on East versus West. Cowboys, obviously, there's a lot of cowboy-related stuff in there. You know, the famous catchphrase, which no one said yet, is obviously, it turns out...
What's that, Dave?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother funster. It's obviously a Roy Rogers catchphrase, which is misappropriated. Anti-capitalism, I found, was one of the themes in there. I think
bit of Fight Club in there.
Yeah, I think Nakatomi is kind of a bit of a symbol of probably wealth and greed, and that's what Hans Gruber's, trying to rectify. Anti-war, something that was in there. There was that Vietnam reference when they were in the helicopters. The two Johnsons, not Robinsons.
Yeah.
Saigon.
Was it Julia Hyde, dickhead?
What was... I kind of sat and thought about that for a while, trying to work out what the point of that was. Was he trying to make him feel old because trying to make him feel bad because he was older than him, or was he trying to say Vietnam's not something to be proud about? Is he? What was it?
Yeah, well, he was just like, he was obviously in Nam, and he's buzzing and being he must have been in a helicopter lots in Vietnam because of how they used to drop him around. And he's just got that buzz on again. You know, we're going to go and take down some people, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
Just like Sega, slick.
Yeah. I mean, again, because it was 88, I mean, it's a while ago now, so Vietnam was slightly more kind of, in recent past times, but it did kind of stick out to me as being a weird thing to say. Anti-authority is another theme, obviously, that's quite recurrent. So Dwayne Robinson and the FBI and all that, they're there thinking that they're going to take over and they're going to resolve the situation where actually they're making it worse, and it's down to the little man, John McClane, and Powell to kind of sort it out, and they actually have got enough sense and nous to know what actually is going on. And then the other major theme was distrust of the media. So obviously you've got Dick, the reporter, who basically, messes everything up. I thought I was pleasantly surprised. It seemed a little bit deeper than what I was expecting.
You were talking about Yippee-ki-yay, money funster, or however you want to refer to it. A lot of people have talked about that being not just iconic because it's an iconic line generally, but it's the turning point of the movie. That until then, if you watch it again, maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't. But up until that point in the movie, he's been on the run, he's been on the back foot, he's been escaping them. Whereas that's the point where he sort of basically says, I'm the problem now. This is going to change things. And it's sort of like Act 2 is post that. I'm not sure whether I necessarily subscribe to it. I think he does that a lot earlier on. I think that, that one of the things that's quite clever about John McClane as a character is, he's in the lift when he's killed the first person, when he's killed Tony, he doesn't lose his opportunity to get some more information. He rises to the top of the lift and he's making notes, isn't he? He's it's funny, it's Christmas because he's taking a list and he's saying absolutely, and we know who's naughty and nice. I see what he did there. But, and then he repeats that back. So he's telling the bad guys, he's saying, I know about you. I know what your situation is. I know all your numbers and I know all your names. And you don't know who I am or where I am. And that's kind of a powerful thing, even though there's loads of you and one of me. You don't know where I'm going to pop up next. I'm going to kill 2 or 3 more of your guys. So.
The thing I found with that though is he jumps on to the walkie and lets them know about him quite early on. When he could have stayed, he could have been a bit more covert, just taking them out one by one. So they are alerted to the fact they've got this rogue person who can take care of some of them, knock them off quite easily, rather than just being hiding in the shadows. And like you were saying about Dark Knight before, more of a sort of Dark Knight, just like hanging out in air vents and in lift shafts, and occasionally, opportunistically, grabbing one of them, silently taking them out, and just dwindling those numbers down.
But do you think
it wouldn't be such an action movie then, would it? It would be more of a
stealth,
a stealth one, which wouldn't be as watchable. It'd be slower for Dave.
But do you think maybe one of the reasons for that could be the fact that he witnessed Takagi getting, killed at point blank range?
Why didn't you stop that, John? Because you'd be dead too, asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you think maybe that's it's sort of accelerated is if there is a plan? I think maybe that's what it is. Originally he's he pulls the fire cord, doesn't he? And hoping that there's gonna be a load of fire trucks coming, and then the normal things aren't working, kind of thing.
So wanted to touch upon the fact, obviously, I have no emotional connection to Die Hard like you both now do. As a 42-year-old man watching it for the first time, it was just another movie to me. I'm aware there's a certain emotional weight attached to Die Hard for a lot of people. So I think that needs to be understood, that I was trying to watch it as kind of fairly as possible. But it's me watching it is going to be unlike you two watching it, No,
but nostalgia does a lot to make a movie a lot of the time better than it is, or anything better than it is. And so you watching it with fresh eyes is
but also on the flip side, I had to be conscious not to watch it negatively, because I've tried and turned it off in the past as well. So I had to give it a fair crack of the whip as well. So I was trying to walk that line of, obviously I have no emotional connection, but I also had to give it a fair try as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it holds itself up well against the modern movies. If you just if you sort of rate it based on if it was released today, I think it's a pretty damn good effort.
Yeah. I was also obviously really aware of the whole Christmas discussion. So I was watching it with one eye on that. So I think we can talk about that at some point, if not now.
Now it's fine, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. Move on.
Well,
it's a Christmas movie.
So I'm intrigued to know whether this is related to the fact that you originally watched it when you were younger at Christmas. You watched it every Christmas subsequently.
No.
Obviously, there are Christmas elements, but they're not massive amount of Christmas elements.
Christmas songs all the way through. Set at Christmas. Yeah. Christmas hats. Christmas party.
They even say ho ho ho. I don't understand what makes a Christmas movie if that isn't a Christmas movie. Yeah. What when people say it's not a Christmas movie, I don't get annoyed at most things.
But I think people getting murdered sometimes knocks points off.
Okay, so it's not the spirit of Christmas, but it's still a Christmas movie.
It's not what it is, guys. So
But we could do a whole feature on Christmas movies not being Christmas movies, because you've got Home Alone, you've got Lethal Weapon, you've got Die Hard 1 and 2, not any others. You've got Trading Places.
Gremlins. Gremlins is a Christmas movie.
All amazing movies.
You've
never seen Trading Places?
No.
Wow. Right. That's a good...
It's on the list. So I was wondering if you got any idea when you actually first watched it, and also when you first watched it without any dubious UK TV editing in it.
Do you know, I would say that one of the things that probably drives the fact that it was not classed as a Christmas movie is because it came out as a summer blockbuster in the States. And so it was as far as marketing was concerned, as far as it was never released in December. It was always meant to be the summer blockbuster. And actually, it's not until the third one that things are happening in the summer. So I think maybe people
as the leading song will soundtracks for you, doesn't it? For Die Hard 3.
Yes, Summer in the City.
Summer in the City.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, these two films are definitely set at Christmas. There's definitely a Christmas theme. Christmas in Hollis, which is an exceptional song at the start. Yeah.
Yeah,
You must have liked that. You must have liked that song, Dave, as a leader.
I liked it, and I recognised the rapper is Run DMC, but I'd never heard the song, so I watched to the end credits so I could find out what it was called.
So go on. Whilst we're on the subject of music, I know we're on the subject of Christmas as well. So, what do you think of the score or the general theme or anything about the music? Because you're quite musical. So, what did you notice?
So I'll be honest. I have since read stuff about the soundtrack and stuff, and I understand that they use parts of "Ode to Joy" throughout.
Yeah. Do you not think that's amazing? The way they just changed the key slightly to evoke a different feeling in different parts.
I didn't necessarily notice it at the time. I'll be honest. I don't remember any music during the movie itself. I just remember the Christmas songs at the start and at the end. I didn't really pick up on much soundtrack during.
I think
that's probably a good thing, though.
But then they changed the key of that last note to create.
I think that's a good thing. If I wasn't too aware of it, I think that's a good thing because it obviously did its job.
Yeah,
exactly.
Consistent theme within the tune, isn't it? But it's just manipulated for each individual. So I thought it was really. I never heard that done before. Whether taking an existing song, or in this case, a classical song, Beethoven's song. Can you call it a song? Beethoven score, and then manipulated it away from the original to fit what they're trying to evoke in each scene. I thought it was absolutely brilliant the way they've done that.
But I read there was some kind of disagreement around the director presumably wanted to use "Ode to Joy" and somebody didn't.
Yeah, Michael Kamen, Michael Kamen, the composer, he said something hilarious like, I can mess with Mozart or Tchaikovsky or something like that, but I don't want to mess with Beethoven. Interestingly,
how did he convince him?
You probably paid him more money.
He showed him the clip of A Clockwork Orange, which uses exactly the same piece of music. He was concerned that it wouldn't go with violence. Yeah,
and obviously that's as ultra violent as it can possibly be. I think the interesting thing about Michael Kamen is that if you look at a couple of his other films, I think he did Time Cop, but the one I'm thinking of is Lethal Weapon. There's actually quite a similarity of music across Lethal Weapon and Die Hard. There's a kind of that sort of, I don't know, kind of anthemic, but building you apprehending violence in a kind of. I can't really explain it better than that.
We could probably find, if we watch both Lethal Weapon 1 and Die Hard now, we'll be able to find little 5-second, 10-second snippets. They'll be very, very similar.
Like what was Enemy at the Gate, and what's it? Oh yeah, what was it we used to say? Enemy at the Gate.
Enemy in the Gate shares the same soundtrack. And Scream 3 and Broken Arrow shared the same soundtrack as well. I think it was Scream 3. Yeah. How come? I don't know this. You might be able to answer this. How come they didn't use McTiernan didn't use Alan Silvestri again? Was it Alan Silvestri? Yeah, Alan Silvestri did Predator, didn't
Predator. He? I don't know. I think
Future Predator.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it works quite well, doesn't it? As a bit of a break from that.
I'm just surprised because directors use, they use what they know and what they like, don't they? See,
Spielberg with John Williams, for example.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's a winner in Predators. That score was so good, and it fits so well for that film. Surprised it didn't, do something similar and then went completely, different direction. But I'm not taking anything away from it. Ode to Joy is fantastic for that film. Works really well, and I think having a classical song as well brings it back into Christmas as well, doesn't it? It makes it Christmassy.
Well, there you go, Dave. Question for you.
Christmas film and all.
Because Lloyd and I will not be swayed on this. So for you, is it a Christmas film?
My answer, being ultimately very aware of the fact that many people consider this to be the ultimate Christmas movie, I was watching it with that in mind, and I didn't think it was particularly Christmassy, except for the music at the start and the end, and a few Christmas trees dotted around. And if anything, I remember at the end of Die Hard 2 feeling far more Christmassy.
That's because of the snow, isn't it, though?
And also, whatever song they use at the end is very Christmassy.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. So, Dave, would you recommend this movie to a friend?
Yeah, I think it was a good movie. I do think it was good. I thought Bruce Willis was really good. I thought Alan Rickman was really good. Obviously, again, it's hard to watch a movie in which it's Alan Rickman's debut as a Hollywood actor, and I know very well who he is. And I think it had that on its side, didn't it? The element of surprise that he was cast as an unknown, whereas I know who Alan Rickman is. But no, I thought it was great. I mean, I thought obviously his accent was incredibly dubious throughout.
Yeah.
And part of me thinks that was intentional. That was a genius move. I understand that all of the German dialogue is pretty much gobbledygook. And that may explain. I made a note towards the end of the movie. There were sections where they just talked to each other in English. So it was very weird that they just suddenly switched into English where they've been talking in German. I also understand that some of that dialogue was fixed in subsequent kind of home releases, like video releases. But Alan Rickman's was never actually sorted out, and he's just talking almost gobbledygook throughout.
I think the fact that they were German in the film was kind of irrelevant. They were pretending that they were terrorists, but actually they were just thieves. It could have been people from New York pretending to be thieves, but it just sort of scanned better that it was German. Although ironically, I think Bruce Willis is the only person who's actually German who plays any of the parts.
He was born in Germany, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In the German release, Dave Gruber did not sound as threatening.
So I made a note about, why were the terrorists German? I'm going to use the word terrorist, sorry, and specifically East German. And Die Hard was made towards the end of the Cold War, and obviously at that time and for many years beforehand, German or Russian was pretty much, the byword for bad guy in any kind of Hollywood movie. And I remember watching it thinking, times have changed. And then I was watching the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier today, and the bad guys are French. So obviously European is still, the choice of bad guy for anything in Hollywood these days.
It was British for years, wasn't it, as well? There was a sort of 10-year, 15-year period that if you heard a person talking with an English accent, they were going to be a bad guy in the end.
Yeah.
So French is a new one. That's quite good. So, Dave, I've got a couple of some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
If you don't know, you can say just, I don't know. Who is the first bad guy to die?
It was someone with a far too English sounding name. It was Tony or his brother.
Well, hang fire on his brother. I might have given you a clue to the next question.
Okay.
Which bad guy died last?
Tony's brother, who's called Frank or Jeff.
Carl. Steve.
Sorry,
Steve.
I wasn't making extensive as the notes were that I took. I wasn't documenting each person's death and their name.
That's all right.
Okay, so next question. Which bad guy was thrown out the window?
I don't know the name of the bad guys. I know Hans Gruber, that's it.
Lloyd, do you know?
Was it one of the ones he wrote on his arm? It was brunette.
I've not actually written this down, so I'm hoping I'm right.
There's two fellas who come in the boardroom, isn't there? And there's the blonde one, and then he runs behind his mate, and his mate ducks, so he kills the blonde one. And then the fellow who stands on top of the desk with a really weird accent going, "Oh, you stupid American, you think you do it?" And he's just shooting into the desk. And he's just assuming John McClane's like crawling under the desk all the way, when John McClane could have stayed at the start of the desk and the terrorist walked along it and he could just pop up. But anyway, him, whatever his name is.
I think it's Marco.
It's quite funny. It's one of the names he heard from the lift.
And that scene, isn't it? That scene where he fires under the desk, that's reportedly the reason why Bruce Willis is deaf in his left ear. Because they used extra loud blanks or something like that. So it was Marco, I think, that they threw onto the roof. So Dave, which bad guy did we not see die?
Is it
Lloyd
the one,
might be able to help.
Is it the one that he puts the Santa suit on in the lift with ho 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 on him?
No, he's definitely dead.
I couldn't remember whether we actually saw him get killed or not. We definitely didn't. We didn't see John undressing him and putting a Santa suit on him.
Although somebody's got a conspiracy theory that when Hans goes like this in the lift during the film, you see him blink, So the suggestion is he isn't dead, but yeah, he's definitely dead.
That's not a conspiracy theory. All you have to do is watch the film and see if he blinks. When he touches his head. It's a conspiracy. Watch the film. He didn't blink. Well, there we go. Solved.
What I mean is bad acting, meaning that someone's blinked when they're supposed to be dead, rather than it's part of the script.
Yeah, like the guy in Braveheart who wore his watch, who wore his like digital watch in the fight scene.
Can I just ask, are there going to be many more henchmen questions for me to not know the answer to?
Only no more. I like that though. It sounds like an Austin Powers question, that doesn't it? Any more henchmen? Lloyd, which henchman didn't die at the end of the movie?
What was his name? Leroy or something. The computer nerd.
Theo.
Quarterback is toast. Theo.
Quarterback is toast. Yeah, Theo.
Theo just gets knocked out.
He gets knocked out by Argyle.
And he reacts really weirdly, doesn't he? He crashes and like that, and he punches him, and he goes.
Rumor has it that a number of different actors were approached to play the role of John McClane, but refused to do so. Some are confirmed, some are not. I'm going to name 5 now, and you have to answer. If you think they're a good choice, you say John. If you think they're a poor choice, you say Johnson. And if you think they're a terrible choice, say Dwayne.
Are you ready? I've forgotten what the options are. This isn't going to
work. Are you ready?
What? John's good. What's Johnson?
Johnson's bad, but Dwayne's terrible. Okay. Frank Sinatra. Do you want the options again?
Dwayne.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Johnson.
Sly Stallone.
John.
Don Johnson.
John Johnson.
Don Johnson. Not John Johnson.
For Agent Johnson.
Johnson. Bit too slick.
I hope you say that, because I just like the idea of you saying Johnson to the question that was Don Johnson, because that just doesn't make any sense. Okay, and the best possible rumour that I heard, Richard Dean Anderson.
I'd
love to give you an answer, but I don't know who that is.
Is that MacGyver?
Yeah, MacGyver. Yes. Well done, Lloyd.
Why don't you answer that one, Lloyd? The only thing I know about MacGyver is that it's what Patty and Selma watch, Marge's sisters.
Yeah. Oh, MacGyver. Oh.
Okay, so
MacGyver.
So, Dave, we've got a few other things to talk about, but any other thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, just a few other things that I noticed. I was watching it, and there's a Stevie Wonder joke in there, and it really leapt out at me as being massively inappropriate. So I think it's when John McClane's on the roof and he's wondering why basically Powell, who's driving the police car, he's come to check out the Naktomi Plaza. Thinks that everything's fine. I think he goes and speaks to the security guard, and he's in the process of leaving. And he says, "Who's driving this car?" Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know times are different then, and you probably wouldn't get away with it now. But I remember still thinking that was, particularly inappropriate. And then I watched the movie right to the end and saw the music credits and found out that Stevie Wonder actually had a song in the movie, which I don't remember.
Yeah,
to be fair. Called Skeleton.
Isn't it, Skeletons. It's playing in the limo that Argyle's listening to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it occurred to me that Stevie Wonder must have actually a pretty awesome sense of humour, because he presumably had to rubber stamp that joke. So other things that occurred to me. Number 47. Why is Hans Gruber wearing a suit when none of the other terrorists are? And I know you probably both know the answer to this, but this is the note I took when I was watching the movie, and I think later on I realised why that was. I assume as a plot point, it was so he was able to trick McClane into being one of the workers at the Naktomi Plaza with his American accent.
Yeah, what was the guy's name? Clinton something the third or whatever it is. I don't know how McClane gets onto him, because he reads that. He's really clever the way he does it. He reads it off the board of people who work for the company.
Bill Clay.
Yeah. Clay.
But the reason why I think that's quite cool is because
you're one of them, aren't you? Don't kill me, you're one of them.
But it's great because it's William, isn't it? It's WM, so you know it's William rather than Bill. So that's clever because he's not saying I'm William Clay. So that shows his sort of his intellect. But
well, I've been so stupid. I go, I'm WM Clay.
yeah. I'm Warris Mongol Clay.
Hello, I'm here to pick up the letters for Mr. Burns. Okay, Mr. Burns, what's your first name? I don't know.
I actually think, Dave, I think it's a really simple film kind of concept that they're portraying there. So they're basically saying you've got the good guy, the protagonist. He's unkempt. You've got the antagonist, Hans Gruber. He's really well groomed. You go back to John McClane. He's scruffy, clothed. He's got the vest on and all that sort of stuff. He's got a really nice suit. You've got no shoes because he's barefoot and he's running through. And and then you've got I think it's deliberately done to show the sort of wisecracking cowboy against the debonair, businessman who's got no real heart, and he's not wearing it on his sleeve. He's completely cold in his manner and stuff. I think it's showing it's. I think it's a plot. It's a plot feature of trying to show the good guy against the bad guy and showing differences between both.
I think it just. I don't know. It kind of. He makes reference to suits early on, doesn't he? Was it John Phillips or whatever? Where he notices.
I have two myself.
John Phillips, London. What? I have two myself. I believe Arafat buys his there. Yeah. And it also sets out the hierarchy. So a lot of the henchmen, I like that word that Dave used before, have like power ballad, rock band haircuts, don't they? And like are wearing like tracksuits and stuff. And he's there in his, I imagine, designer suit. Sets out the hierarchy with him amongst the bad guys. But also, it shows an air of self-awareness. He thinks things out. He holds himself in a certain way. He's not necessarily going to get his hands dirty doing the big jobs. He's the person wrangler, isn't he? He's getting the information and putting everything together. So I think it kind of just fit in with that.
He even says, doesn't he? There's a point, I can't remember the exact quote, but he says something, like Alexander wept because blah blah blah, because there were no more worlds to conquer. And he's got his little book, and he's reading. I always feel that it looks like there's a bit that's been edited or like cut from that, because if you actually watch the movie, there's no reason for him to have the book open. He might have said 3 words, and I'm sure he could probably remember those 3 words. And he goes, "Okay, now I've done with the book." But yeah, I think he's meant to be this. I'm extremely clever. I'm cleverer than you. I know what I'm doing. And against that, it's thinking on his feet, completely unplanned. I don't know what I'm doing from one moment to the next. And I think it's all about juxtaposition. It's all about being the opposite of the bad guy, of the good guy.
Right.
Yeah, cool, calm, collected. I'm in a suit. I'm on top of everything. I've got control. My plan is going from A to B unhindered, very, very smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't even take his tie off, does he? You take your tie off a little bit, but he's got his tie on. He's there, cool, calm, collected. Everything's going my way.
So Dave, do you know the difference? Do you know the reason why Ghostbusters has a link to Die Hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I do. Obviously, Ghostbusters is not obviously for people that are watching, but Ghostbusters is one of my favorite movies. So the cop Al Powell is played by Reginald Al Johnson, who's also in Ghostbusters. He plays a jail guard. The kind of trash TV journalist guy, Dick. What's his surname?
Thornburg.
So he's played by William Atherton, who plays Walter Peck or Pencil Neck in Ghostbusters. So that's a decent enough connection. But then I also loved adding on to that the fact that basically Al Powell is obsessed with Twinkies and eats them throughout the movie. And obviously there's a connection to Twinkies, and it's what Peter Venkman uses to kind of bribe Egon with in Ghostbusters. And also a little story about Twinkies. I spent my entire childhood and most of my life believing that a Twinkie was some kind of fruit. I don't know why I thought that, but I'd certainly never tried one because they're not actually available in the UK, particularly not very well, not that available. But about a year or so ago, I saw it in a shop somewhere, so we bought a packet and tried it and found out it was actually a cake. So good story.
True story. Can I buy the rights to that, Dave?
Yeah, so that's a Ghostbusters connection. I also wanted to talk about, the impact of Die Hard generally on pop culture since it was released. Yeah. And you two will have more examples than I do because obviously, well, I mean, this story alone tells you that I was watching Die Hard, whatever night it was, and my son walked into the room, happened just complete instance. He was in the room when a certain line was uttered, which was, this is an exchange between Tony and John McClane. So Tony says, "You won't hurt me." John McClane says, "Oh yeah, why not?" Tony says, "Because you're a policeman. There are rules."
You're a policeman.
You're a policeman.
Yeah, and then McClane says, "Yeah, that's what my captain keeps telling me." And Kaylan, my 12-year-old son, said straight away that's a reference to Stranger Things, which is what he thought. Obviously, Stranger Things.
That's brilliant.
Stranger Things have referenced Die Hard. Yeah. I was oblivious to it. He recognised it straight away. And there's probably loads of things that that Die Hard's referencing, which I'm semi-oblivious to, unless it's something really obvious, like Yippee-Ki-Yay.
When Adam and I have been saying over the past sort of 20 years, come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs. You've had no idea what we're talking about.
No, just you two being weird.
You get it now, though.
No, but next time you say it, I'll know it's Die Hard because you just told me. Yeah, and it's going to take more than one watch for that to really be embedded, isn't it?
How about then Japanese Sean Connery?
Oh, the elephant in the room.
Then there's no reason for you not to give it to me. I'm telling you, I don't know. You're just going to have to kill me.
I don't remember that bit.
I think it's a weird thing, Dave. For years, Lloyd and I grew up and we had this thing in our head, wrong probably, but it stayed in our head, that we both independently thought that Takagi sounded like he was doing a Scottish accent at the moment that he's about to die. Yeah,
trying to do a Sean Connery.
So every time we watch it now, we just hear, "You're just going to have to kill me." We don't know why. We just hear it every time.
Never noticed that.
You're just going to have to kill me. You have to watch that scene again, the boardroom scene.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's noticed that, to be fair.
That's what this is about. Our Project Indonesia. Contrary to belief, we're trying to develop the area, not exploit it.
I've got a couple more things that I wanted to raise. Quite a few things we've already touched upon as we've just been naturally talking away. We didn't talk about the fact that his wife, the spelling of his wife's name seems to change through on the movie.
Yeah, it's very fluid, isn't it? With A's and O's
Gennaro.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think you preempted it, Adam. I think you said it before I got to that point. But on the touch screen that Lloyd talked about, I think between cuts it actually changes the spelling in the same scene.
Yeah,
and then
it's weird.
When it gets to our office door, is spelled Gennaro, I think, with an A, or I don't know. Yeah. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, there's different spellings of a name. So continuity. I noticed, and I mean, I wasn't scrutinizing it, but it was so obvious just when I was watching it. There's a scene between, I think it was when John McClane first meets Hans Gruber, and he's got really visibly different hair in a couple of the shots. Like they'll come back after, like he's wearing a wig. It's a different style. It looks like a wig, and it's like
his hands.
Yeah, it's like they've had to come back after the main shoot is finished and do some reshoots, and he's changed his hair by then, and it was really obviously different. You have to try and find some shots of that, Lloyd, if you can put some photos in or something just to show it.
Do you know there's a reason for that? Apparently, that when it was one of the first scenes that they shot together, him and Bruce Willis, and they wanted it to be that, so they didn't have any kind of chemistry, so it was kind of like an alien setting. And the first bit where he jumps down and he lands at Bruce Willis's feet, apparently he really damaged his knee. And he was wearing like a boot or, crutches.
Oh, yeah. And he was behind a table for the rest of the movie or something.
Yeah.
Or he stood down.
Yeah. So they reshot over like quite a long period of time, is what I understand. And that probably explains the continuity error. Right. So we're now at the part of the show where we ask you, Dave, particularly to rate the movie. We've got two ratings here. We've got a popcorn rating. So either 1 to 10. Popcorn kernels, or can you please also give your critics' view, which is the standard, good old-fashioned 1 to 5 stars. If you really, really dislike something, you can give it a corn cob, which means it's not even worth popping the corn. But I'm afraid on the critics rating, you'll have to at least give 1 star, because here at the Great Movie Show, we respect the fact that somebody's at least made a movie. So we'll always get at least 1 star on the critics rating. So starting with a popcorn rating, this is how much you personally enjoyed it. It might be a terrible film. You might have loved it lots. How would you rate popcorn rating Die Hard?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Maybe an 8.5.
It's a very endorsement.
I like it. We've won him over, Lloyd. What's your popcorn rating, incidentally, Lloyd?
Do you know what? Very, very similar. 8.5, maybe a 9. Probably an 8.5 though, because I've enjoyed more, others a bit more. But yeah, 8.5. Yeah,
I'm pretty close. I'd say I think I'm an 8 as well. 8. I don't think I'll push 8.5 just because it's the first show. It's the first show, and I feel like there's not really a great way to go. But I think maybe we can temper that with the. Can you have half a kernel, by the way?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay, that's fine. A Colonel Stewart, if you will. Okay, give me, Dave, and this is much more generally, if you had to recommend the film, you were doing a Guardian or Independent or Empire rating. What would be your star rating out of 5?
Out of 5? Ooh, switching up there. I don't. It's a hard one. I feel like with it being out of 5, it sounds a little bit more savage. If I say like 3 out of 5, I want to say 4 out of 5, but it sounds too generous now.
You can go halves.
I'm going to say 3.5 out of 5. I think I watched it far more intently than most people would, and I maybe looked for themes and stuff like that in there that maybe weren't necessarily there. And I watched it really analytically with a critic's mind. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was entertaining, but it's not a masterpiece to my mind. It's not a masterpiece of cinema. It's more entertaining than it is perfect cinema to my mind. But then, what's perfect cinema?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we have these 2 ratings, because personally, we enjoy films that we often recognize that no one else is going to watch with us. I've watched many a film where I've thought that's brilliant, and I've recommended it to somebody, and I've sat next to them and I've cringed at half the film, knowing full well that person's hating it.
Yeah.
So what would your critics rating for Die Hard be?
Do you know what? I'll probably go for a 4. I think if it was made now, yeah, I don't know if it'd be there, but if I'm rating it back in the 80s, when it was made, for what it did, what it set out to achieve, what it accomplished, yeah, 4 out of 5. It's a very, very watchable, enjoyable film. It's like Ron Seal, everything it says it's going to do on the tin. A guy in a building trying to escape some terrorists, nowhere to go, and he saves the day.
It's probably a 4-star for me. It's not a perfect film. You could argue that it's as close to a perfect action film as you can get. It doesn't have a lot of the kind of usual rubbish that's associated with the action film. There's not as many set pieces that you'd expect to see. There's a few surprises. There's some comedy. There's some subtlety. But yeah, I think I'd go for a 4-star as well. So that's pretty good rating. So we've got a 4, and what did you say, Dave? 3.5.
Yeah.
He's wavering. Peer pressure.
Quite a few popcorn kernels as well. 3 8.5s. So for a first film of our review at the Great Movie Show, I think that's not bad going.
Feels to me like every movie has to be kind of like up there, otherwise it kind of undermines the title of the show, doesn't it?
Yeah. The shit movie show. Do. Next week, Ewoks, Battle of Endor.
Now we're going to move to our one of our regular features, Pop Quiz Hotshot. We need to get our timings right. So, obviously, the graphic was inspired by the film Speed.
I thought it was Celebrity Coach Strip.
Well, we went lowbrow because we didn't want to infringe on any copyright. Jan de Bont would have been very proud of us at that moment.
By the way, do you know that what inspired him for Speed was because he got caught in a lift during the filming of Die Hard?
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Right. Pop Quiz Hotshot. There's a bomb on the bus. What do you do? What do you do?
Jump off the bus.
Yeah, it's that easy. End of movie. Anyway, so this is the regular part of the show where we're going to ask one of us. This time we're going to ask Lloyd. I'll be asking the questions. We'll ask about 10 or so regular questions just to get a bit of an insight into you as a particular movie fan, movie goer, what your general thoughts are. What's the first film that you saw in the cinema?
I think it was Fox and the Hound, but I can't remember that at all because it must have only been 2. When was that? 81, 82, something like that.
Wow, that's early.
I think Mum and Dad took me to see that, but I can't remember it. First one I can remember was E.T. My dad took me, but I didn't stay. I got freaked out right at the start when you saw the little E.T. creature's fingers. You know, they were botanists, weren't they? So they were picking all the leaves and plants, and I just sprinted up the aisle, and my dad had to chase after me, and we went home, so we didn't even stay to watch the rest of the film.
Sure, he was delighted about that.
He was, and he'd paid for the tickets, and I remember we had this like program, because it was a big thing, it was Spielberg's E.T., so we had a program from the movie as well that he bought at the cinema, and then we didn't even stop to watch it. But I don't know if that counts.
Sorry to interrupt, can I just tell you a brilliant story about E.T.?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. You know, like sticker books, like Panini, like football stickers and all that. Was actually, I remember distinctly there was an E.T. sticker album, and it would have been my older brother Brian that was collecting them because we were quite young at the time. But I remember we spent 6 months getting these, buying these packets of stickers. There's a clue, and with a kind of squeezy kind of thing of glue, gluing them into the book. Until one day we realised you can take the backing off and stick them in.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Why didn't anyone drive you in the right direction in your house?
I was 3 at the time, or 4, so I take no responsibility for this.
You must have had parental supervision to go and buy them and watch what you were doing with them.
You've met my parents, Lloyd, so...
So E.T. might not count because I didn't watch it all, but then I watched Return of the Jedi, I think the following year. I can't remember too much about that.
83, is that, I think?
Something like that. And then the one I've got a really strong memory of is watching Ewoks Caravan of Courage.
Yeah. Give us a movie fact or Easter egg, please.
I've heard this one recently. I don't know if it's true or not. Obviously, Tom Selleck was offered the role of Indiana Jones. He turned it down. But I've heard the reason he turned it down was they wouldn't make a further season of Magnum because he'd be doing the movie, so he couldn't have done it. And he didn't want to put the Magnum crew out of work, which included sort of some Hawaiian locals as well.
That's quite cool, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, class act, isn't he? He's just a nice thing to do. I don't know if it's true or not. Don't hold me to it, but I think I read it somewhere recently.
Whereas, interestingly, as a circle back to Die Hard, apparently Bruce Willis originally said he didn't think that he could squeeze Die Hard into his schedule because of how intense the filming was for Moonlighting. And then Sybil Shepherd became pregnant, and there's about an 11 or 12 week period that he was able to hot step it back between the two studios, and he was able to film all of the films. So he was able to carry on doing what he was doing and do a pretty cool movie. Next question, Lloyd. First movie soundtrack you ever bought?
I think it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie soundtrack with
Awesome.
tracks.
Class.
Yeah, and MC Hammer on there. I think Vanilla Ice did one. Go Turtle, go. And then there was the
T-U-R-T-L-E power.
Yeah,
It wasn't as sinister as that, I don't think.
Yeah. On the half shell, they're the heroes for. In this day and age, you could ask for more. The muggins are high with the mysterious. Oh, police and detectives are furious because they can't find the source of this lethally evil force.
Okay, so that's not a bad one. Okay, so we might know the
comments
answer.
on it.
What is the first 18 certificate film, so adult or R-rated film that you remember watching?
I think it was probably RoboCop.
Good call.
I remember the other kids we were friendly with down the road. My mum and dad socialised with their mum and dad, so we'd all go to the same house of a Saturday night, whatever. As kids would hang out in the lounge, and the mum and dads would like play Trivial Pursuit, whatever. And they got Sky really early on, so we had Sky Movies and stuff. And so we were in the front room going on for midnight on a Saturday evening when they're all playing their games. And so we watched whatever we wanted, really. I think it was, RoboCop. We watched on Sky Movies when it was just like one movie channel on Sky.
What's the first film or TV show that made you cry?
TV show was, I think this probably predates any sort of movie, was Quantum Leap, the pilot episode, where I think he jumps into the baseball player and he realizes he's in a timeline where his dad's still alive.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it. I can feel myself welling up. So he rings his dad, who in Sam Beckett's real lifetime or real time zone has died a long time ago. But he gets to ring his dad on the landline and talk to him. But he's got to kind of pretend who he is because he can't be his dad's son because his dad's son's sitting at the kitchen table with his dad in the real time. So he basically just says, "Oh, I'm your nephew or whatever. I'm called Sam as well." And then, oh God, it's like so hard to talk about. It's like, and then at the end of the call, he says, "Oh, I love you," like that. And, it was just so touching. And I remember watching that sort of 13 or 14. Was that about the right time frame? We were 13, weren't we? 14, maybe.
I think so.
Maybe younger. Yeah. And you've understood about mortality at that age, haven't you? And your parents and stuff like that. It was just so heart wrenching.
Okay, so back to sorts of usual kind of movie type questions. Who, in your opinion, has been the best James Bond?
I know growing up it was Brosnan because GoldenEye was such a high concept Bond. It was just like so Bond, wasn't it? All these set pieces. You've got the bad guy who's also an ex-00, and the tank driving through Russia, and the bit at the beginning where he's just like trying to catch the plane and everything. It was just so crazy, and Brosnan did it so well. So I probably got to say Brosnan with my growing up self watching the Bond films. Although when I was younger, before Brosnan, it was Moore as opposed to Connery, which is a bit funny as well because you think people say Connery because he was so good, but then Moore played it tongue in cheek. There were just different movies, weren't they, with the different people? And Sean Connery, it was always a more complex storyline. So as a kid, I couldn't follow what the hell was going on. Where with Roger Moore, it was just dead simple. Yeah, and innuendo to set piece to innuendo to really cool ending. But yeah, I suppose.
Also, Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die is the best Bond movie, isn't it? So, and that's Roger Moore.
Next question is: who, in your view, is the most underrated actor, living or dead?
Anyway, Sam Worthington. I think at the moment, he's absolutely brilliant in everything he does. Even that low-budget one, Rogue, in Australia with the crocodile.
So Sam Worthington's Avatar and Terminator Salvation?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen Terminator Salvation on Blu-ray for a long, long time because I owned it and I lent it to someone and I never got it back. But I think he's
I don't know who that was.
But I just think he's brilliant. And I don't know if he's just signed into the contract for these 5 Avatar movies. I believe it's either 4 or 5 they're set to make.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't do a lot in between. And he's absolutely, you watch him in anything, he's so engaging. He's such a really, really good actor.
Can I just ask, who needs one Avatar sequel, let alone 3, 4, 5?
I think Avatar 2 is called The Seed Bearer. Avatar 3, I can't remember now, but yeah. And the whole thing...
Is the world really that desperate for Avatar sequels? I don't think we are.
They had them all planned. They've just been delayed. So in Disney World, in Animal Kingdom, they've got Pandora. And the whole premise of what's going on in that land is based on Avatar 3, I think, or Avatar 2 storyline, which hasn't even been released. So they've had all these ideas to do, and they just keep on getting delayed and delayed. But anyway, Sam Worthington is my answer. Sorry.
Okay, so name a featured song or soundtrack that resonates with you. It can be one punctuated moment in a movie, or it can be the whole soundtrack.
It's Vanilla Sky, and it's Nancy Wilson, Elevator Music.
Yeah.
Just hearing that through. They play it in different ways as well. It's similar to what I was saying about Ode to Joy before. They slow it down, they speed it up, they change it. Adam, that is worth about 500-600 quid now.
Okay, so this, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, this was a birthday gift from the brilliant Lloyd for me some time ago. It's a
You mean that Lloyd?
This Lloyd, yeah, it's a beautiful, yeah. I see what you did there. It's a beautiful, proper LP album.
Yeah, vinyl.
And yeah, it's which is the one you like? Nancy Wilson's Elevator Beat.
Elevator Beat, sorry, not Elevator Music.
It's a good song. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's evocative. It's actually a really simple piece of music as well. Just played on acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Do you know the only reason why I would say, and obviously you're not wrong because it's your opinion, but the only reason why I'd say it's not the best song on the album is I just can't get past how good Salisbury Hill is by Peter Gabriel every time I hear it. Okay, Lloyd, so the next question is, what is your favourite set piece in a movie?
I think it's got to be Raiders. The initial scene for that. Just a bit slow, getting to the temple and everything, and then just some lovely cinematic shots. You've got Indy doing his weighing up, like what's going to, doing how much do I need to take out of my bag before I put it on for the idol. Give me the idol, give me the whip, that sort of thing. Alfred Molina before he went on and did El Cid. It's just a great one, and then just running down over that hill to Jock Lindsay's seaplane, where he comes over the hill. Jock, start the engines, and then 2 seconds later you see like 1,500 tribes people chasing after him and blow darts going everywhere, and then just swinging out into that river, swimming out to the seaplane and getting in, and then it flies off, and then there's your intro to the film.
Okay, so the next thing is who is your movie crush?
It's sort of like evolved from one to another as I've grown up, but it was like Jennifer Connelly, and then it was Charlize Theron, and then probably Jennifer Connelly again and Charlize Theron. So they've all just like changed position all the way through. But yeah, Jennifer Connelly, Labyrinth, because I would have been 8 or 9. Is that right? 8 or 9 years old when Labyrinth came out?
I'll check.
I think it was 88.
I'll check because it's up here.
Yeah, so we were 8 or 9 then. I consider Labyrinth a Christmas movie because what you were saying about I watched it at Christmas the first time, and it was on telly at Christmas, so I've got an emotional connection with Labyrinth at Christmas, so it makes me feel Christmassy.
1986, according to this.
Right, so 7.
Yeah, it's 86. I just googled it.
Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, it was Jennifer Connelly growing up, and then Charlize Theron after I sort of hit my late teens, and then Jennifer Connelly again.
Okay, this should be a reasonably quick answer because you could spend hours discussing this. Marvel or Star Wars?
Do you know what? I don't know. it would have been Star Wars, but I think the Infinity Stone saga was so well done. There's some rubbish movies in there. Well, not rubbish, but that whole saga put together was brilliant. The way it's sort of segued between characters and their own movies and origin movies and everything, I thought was really well done. And I like the movie spin-offs at the moment, the TV spin-offs, sorry.
Having said that, though, if you were to include The Mandalorian in the Star Wars saga, which it should be, does that help sway it back towards Star Wars?
I do really like The Mandalorian.
Damage limitation.
And Cara Dune is probably Cara Dune's one of my crushes now, actually.
Next question.
I didn't choose.
You did.
Yeah. You basically did without saying Marvel. You basically
said Marvel.
No, because do you know what? I would have gone back to Marvel because Star Wars are just too self-indulgent. Even Mandalorian is a bit too self-indulgent. So yeah, Marvel.
Okay. Stallone or Schwarzenegger?
It's a really hard one. I feel the Stallone movies are a bit more not real, because they're not real, but they're just a bit more grounded. You know, Rambo, it was like far-fetched, but at the same time, it's a Vietnam vet who has just lost his rag with society because everything.
Can I just say, for the record, and keeping with the theme of today's episode, I've not seen Rambo.
All right. Well, First Blood, part 1 or 2.
Any of them, whichever period.
That's good.
Oh,
That's
Dave,
cool.
Dave, you should definitely watch Rambo First Blood. It's not the film you expect it to be, because all of the stuff that you've probably seen about Rambo is more to do with the second and third film, where he's taking on entire nations, and he's completely greased up, and it's all about him being muscle bound. This is actually, the first film is actually quite a clever assessment on somebody who's got PTSD, who is unable to assimilate himself back into society, and Brian Dennehy as his sort of foil, the cop who's sort of out to get him or not. It's actually a really good movie. So if you like films like Deer Hunter, even that kind of film, you'd probably actually like this more than you might think you do hearing the sort of title of Rambo. Yeah. Okay, so last question for you. Name a film you've watched without knowing anything about it. So no warning, just saw it, just put it on, go.
So when we were growing up, when we were in Florida, we go with another family called the G's, and there was a cinema complex right next to a place called Pleasure Island, where it was all clubs and bars and stuff like that, and bands going on. So remember, Mum and Dad, and Pete and Gwyn, G, would drop us 4 kids off and just give us a load of money and say, watch 2 films back to back. Like, we weren't dead young, but, you know, it was probably 13, 14, something like that, so we can stay in the cinema safely for a few hours. And we watched Hot Shots, and all I knew about it was the poster was like, just said Hot Shots with wings either side of it, which now I know is what that was relating to, and it just said underneath, the mother of all movies. I mean, we went in not knowing what to expect, and it starts like Top Gun, like do-do-doom, and there's like an aircraft carrier, do-do-doom. Yeah. And then the next thing, you see someone chucks like a American football, someone goes to catch it, falls off the edge of the aircraft carrier. What's going on here? Next thing, the afterburner of the jet's going, and a guy's going, putting hot dogs on a fork, putting it behind the jets of the aircraft carrier. Like, what is going on here, man? And next thing, Lloyd Bridges turns up, and it's like, it's a comedy spoof. But we knew nothing about it, didn't know if it was going to be political, historical, anything, and it was a Top Gun spoof. So it was the most pleasantly surprised I've been going into a film after only seeing the poster outside, and that was it.
That's fantastic. That's the end of this segment. Okay, so our next segment is one that we've been talking about for some time, guys. This is when we're looking at recasting actors from now into a film that we have been reviewing this week. So we'll be looking at reviewing modern day actors in the roles of those that have been in Die Hard. And this part of the segment is called Trading Places. Okay, so this is the moment of the show where we're all going to reveal our different choices for 5 characters from Die Hard. We're going to start with John McClane, and then we're going to go through to Holly Gennaro, then Al Powell, then Dwayne T. Robinson, and then finally we'll end with Hans Gruber. So let's start with you, Dave. Who is your choice for John McClane?
So I'll be honest, there was only one actor that really prominently kind of came into my head with regards to recasting John McClane. I'm hoping it's not the same as what either of you two have picked.
It might be. Let's see if we can guess.
Go on then, guess.
Chris Pratt.
No, I did consider Chris Pratt, but he's not the guy.
Yeah, but that's an Adam answer, Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
He could be my answer on most weeks, I think.
No, I can't get it. I can't read you.
So I wanted it to be an everyman. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
Somebody with a crazy kind of glint in their eye. Cocky. Stocky. Didn't mean those two things to rhyme, but
yeah.
So, even though this person isn't an American actor, I didn't even stop to think whether or not they should do it in an American accent. But I just thought, for me, Tom Hardy would be a perfect modern day John McClane. I like Tom Hardy, so you know.
Yeah, I considered him. I did consider him. I just thought he's a bit too. When you say everyman now, I mean everyman is in. They've never played a proper action role. Now Tom Hardy is your action hero now.
Is he though? Really? I mean,
he is.
In Venom, he plays an everyman.
He does. Yeah, you are right.
Great in Venom.
Who have you chosen, Lloyd?
Well, I've got it a bit differently.
Okay.
So I've gone back to the Roderick Thorpe novel.
Yeah. Oh, you've got older, have you?
Yes, I've gone older, and
nice.
It's not an everyman because I'm thinking.
John Wayne?
Yeah. Yeah, we're done. No, so I've gone cheeky.
Chico from X Factor.
Yeah.
Not as old as Christopher Plummer.
Cheeky, basically being an action hero in his time, being an everyman in his time. He's about 70 now. I think he turned 70 last week. Kurt Russell playing the father of Holly.
Oh,
so
I see.
Back to the novel.
I like that. See what he did there.
Because you think of the McClane quips and being like, he's just cheeky, isn't he? He's a bit hard faced, but like quite funny. Dial's got like a comedy undertow, hasn't it? Really, I think it'd be really well to do it. If I'm not allowed to go back to the novel, considered a few there. I did consider Tom Hardy as well, and I went just a bit left field.
Not my choice.
I haven't gone for him. Keenan Michael Kay.
Nice.
Because I wanted someone who's not really done the action genre, apart from I can name one film, obviously, The Predator, but he's known for his comedy, and so where he's not playing it as a comedy role, where it's got to be straight laced, but you're making little quips. I thought, he did quite well. I think.
You see that's funny that you've gone two completely different ways. I think I've gone a third way actually. I mean, I looked at Chris Pratt because I thought he was one of those. He's one of those people that actually, if you had not had some of the movies he's been in, so if you had just had Parks and Recreation as the comedy series in the States that he'd been
he
in,
would have been perfect. He'd have been
absolutely perfect. And actually, I think that's one of the reasons why he works.
They stole that opportunity for Guardians because he was basically overweight. Yeah. He was the comedy guy. He was like, doing like his faces in Parks and Rec. And then all of a sudden, Guardians of the Galaxy, 6-pack, and he's like, he's this action hero.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it. And I think that because of that, he's almost sort of discounted. And I did think at one point maybe somebody a bit out of left field, like Oscar Isaac, could be quite useful because he's got that kind of glint in his eye. You've seen him as Poe. Yeah, you've seen him as Poe Dameron. He's got that kind of everyman kind of feel.
He's too out and out good looking, Oscar Isaac.
Well, I did think about that, and then but Richard Madden. I thought he'd be quite good. I thought he was particularly good in The Bodyguard, as showing that he can be that kind of reluctant hero. And I thought maybe the kind of twist is that he's not known for comedy, and maybe he can do that kind of sardonic kind of attitude to things. He can certainly do the same thing he's done in Game of Thrones, and he also does in The Bodyguard quite well. So I would choose him just as a completely different style. But I think it takes all sorts. I think when you know somebody so well as we do Bruce Willis, it's hard to think of anyone else playing that role, and that's a good thing, really, because it makes it so synonymous with that character.
I don't think anyone could take it from the way that was written and the way we've all known it. You watch it back, the way he performs that role is brilliant, and he hasn't done the same since, really. Die Hard 2 was similar, but the way he played John McClane, you couldn't replace him.
Well, let's have a look at Holly Gennero. So
let's have a look at Holly Gennero.
So Dave, let's start with you. Holly Gennero, Gennaro, or Holly McClane? Who would you have in that role?
So before I tell you who I chose, I'm going to tell you why I struggled with this one. So I thought about it quite a lot. Ultimately, I decided on two. I know that's not a cop-out. One of them is more well known, but I get the impression that she should be a slightly less known actress in that role, actually. So my number one choice was Emily Van Camp, who is in the Marvel movies, plays Sharon Carter's niece, is it? Yeah. Agent Carter's niece, or is she called Sharon Carter?
I think she's Sharon Carter, isn't she?
Yeah, and my kind of then second choice, slightly more well known, is Emma Stone. And it's worth saying.
I had Emma Stone.
I also considered Jennifer Lawrence, someone about the way they look, but I just felt ultimately she was too kind of well known for a role which is relatively minor as far as I'm concerned in that movie.
I'll go before you, Lloyd.
You'll have the same as me.
Actually, I considered Hayley Atwell. Interestingly, you said Agent Carter. I thought that maybe it was to do with her look and her kind of sternness and her sort of power that she gives off. But I did think of Hayley Atwell. But actually, I settled on a more sassy, dynamic actress, which is Amy Adams.
Yeah. Because
I think you need somebody who can
kind of style.
Yeah, but I was thinking you need somebody who can give as good as they get. That's going to, that you can see standing up to him, and I can see her being fiery from all the roles I've seen her in. So I'm quite happy with Amy Adams being a good possible.
John McClane drives everyone insane. Well, that rhymes as well, actually. Because you can see it, like Holly's like, has he made the flight or not? And the rings were saying, yeah, I'm coming there now, and she's still pissed off with him. Even though she's happy he's coming, and like turns the photo down, doesn't she? The family photo. She just puts it on its face because she's like, he drives everyone crazy. As she says, as she sees the terrorists are going crazy, she goes, "It must be John. He does that to everybody." Yeah. So yeah, it's absolutely right. They need to give as good as you get, and that's why I've gone for Emily Blunt.
Ooh, she was my third choice.
If 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of the Benghazi hadn't been made, I would have had John Krasinski as John McClane.
I saw him mentioned as in a few articles about
because he's the everyman. He was from The Office, and then that's why was it Bruckheimer who did 13 Hours.
Michael Bay, but yeah, probably was Bruckheimer. It was Michael Bay.
It was Bay, yeah, wasn't it?
They reckon Krasinski was in the running to play Captain America, and they reckon now he's also the favourite to play. What's the Reed Richards? Is it in the Fantastic Four?
Oh, cool.
The MCU, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's really. I loved him in The Office. I love him in 13 Hours, and he's great in A Quiet Place as well. Yeah, with Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
So your choice, Emily Blunt.
His wife.
So my choice is Emily Blunt. I think she'd be great. I cast her as the daughter of Kurt Russell, because I think she's got the maturity as an actress as well to be able to do that to and fro.
The next character is Al Powell.
Yeah.
I've got a good one.
Who would you choose, Lloyd, as Sgt Al Powell?
No, I'll go second.
Okay, Dave, who would you choose as Sgt
I'm happy to go first, and this is where I embarrassed myself, to be honest. I struggled with this one, and I've probably gone so stereotypical with this, so I apologise. I'll start with my second choice, which is just so laughable, which was Kevin Hart. I really apologise for that. My first choice, in a way,
that's Adam's number one.
My first choice
Adam's furiously scribbling.
Yeah, my first choice is even more laughable in a way. But there's certain irony in choosing this person. So I didn't realise actually that they'd played cops so many times in their career, given their earlier career as a rapper who weren't particularly keen on cops. So I'll give you a second to think about that.
Is it Ice Cube?
Ice Cube, yeah.
Ice Cube, I like it.
I'm going for Ice Cube. That's my choice.
F the police. F the police.
I like the irony though. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Have you ever watched Ride Along? It's actually quite good.
Oh.
Right. So Lloyd, you're Al Powell.
Right. So he's kind of a sidekick. This guy made a living from being sidekicks. I think it'd be funny. I think in this day and age as well, it would bring like an 80s link back. So I've gone for Sean Astin.
Nice.
Sgt Al Powell.
Yeah, he'd work as a beat cop. Yeah.
He's basically he's been a sort of beat cop, whatever. He's made a mistake. He's had a desk job. So Sean Astin's a little bit more rotund these days, driving his beat car. He would have worked with the ranks, so he's a sergeant. I think he just like fits the role quite well. It could be funny. Yeah. It'd be it's nostalgic as well. Everyone loves Sean Astin. Everyone hated him being killed as Bob in Stranger Things. I was quite happy with my choice.
I went two completely different choices, and hopefully you understand the difference, the reasons for the difference. So my second choice was Ving Rhames.
How old's Ving Rhames now, though?
I don't know, but I like the idea of him being, like in his 50s. He's in his
50s, yeah. Adam.
He can play it in his 50s, can't he? You've seen Mission Impossible.
Choice is Yaphet Kotto.
So that was trying to keep a sort of similar style in terms of intensity, yet still being able to kind of work well with whoever it was that was playing John McClane. But then I thought, what about if we were to make the role a little bit more serious, a little bit modern, and decided, what about Viola Davis? Because I think she would actually be a really good foil for John McClane, and she could play that part. I think she could play that part really well. So I've gone for Viola Davis as my Al Powell, which she could be, because she could be Alison.
Or Alana.
Okay, so this might be a funny one, actually. I've got two really funny choices for Dwayne T. Robinson. So would you mind if I go first?
I'm just going to preempt this by saying I think I've knocked this out of the park. So
okay,
I have.
Okay, so there's a particular cop that we are aware of that has been in things very, very recently. Very recently, if you watch particular series. And so I was thinking that a good choice of Dwayne T. Robinson would be Randall Park, who's the FBI cop who's in Ant-Man and also in
Jimmy Woo.
Sorry?
Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
He's too nice to be Dwayne Robinson.
Yeah, but I think somehow that could work really, really well. So I thought about him, and then I think the Dwayne T. Robinson that knocks out of the park. The only problem is that he's in other superhero movies, and it makes me sort of wonder whether he's sort of overused, and that's J.K. Simmons. I think he'd be a brilliant Dwayne T. Robinson. Dave, who is your choice for Dwayne?
So the guy that I chose for Dwayne Robinson, to my mind, he looks a little bit like the original actor. Normally plays bad guys. occasionally plays bad guys that aren't bad guys through and through, which I think possibly is what Dwayne Robinson is. He's not actually a bad guy, is he? He's just a bit of
he's a cop.
Yeah, exactly. But in the context of Die Hard, he is. Okay, so the person I've chosen to play Dwayne Robinson is Ben Mendelsohn. You know who Ben
I
Mendelsohn
thought of
is?
him. Yeah, I thought about him. Yeah,
Lloyd
that's
doesn't.
good.
Right,
Yeah.
so
I do. He's Vanilla Sky.
No. Rogue
Oh,
One.
he's like the guy in
Rogue One. He's
Rogue One, and also he plays Talos in Captain Marvel.
Ready Player One.
Yeah, Ready Player One. Him.
Yeah.
I think he'd be amazing playing Dwayne Robinson, and clearly you don't share my enthusiasm.
No, I think I'm won over on that. I think if I had a choice of Dwayne T. Robinson now, it is definitely Ben Mendelsohn. But I haven't heard Lloyd's.
All right, thanks. No pressure, Lloyd. I've won, but no pressure.
No. This is going to knock it out of the park because I think he can play it really well. I think he could be a dick, but also like a lovable dick. He's also directing. Who is it, Adam? Who's directing this movie? Who's also in the movie?
Who have you got directing and also starring? It's not. You can't have John Krasinski as Dwayne T. Robinson.
No, because I still want the 80s vibe as well. Maybe a bit earlier than the 80s vibe. I want it a bit funny, but like proper action. Maybe if you head to the other side of the world, maybe sort of towards Australia,
like
New Zealand.
Paul Hogan.
I think it'd be great. I think
Taika would be good. Yeah,
I think it'd be cool because he knows where to sort of set the level with being a dick, but still, playing a role. And
I can see that.
Great now. Yeah, I can see that.
Do you know what? I'm actually starting to think now, Dave, that Taika would be better as Dwayne, and actually Ben Mendelsohn would be better as Hans Gruber.
Yeah, I was thinking he's a proper baddie, Mendelsohn.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back with the final character, probably the least controversial character to choose. I think I'm happy to say on behalf of all three of us that if you were a casting director recasting Hans Gruber in 2021, you almost certainly would only choose one particular person. And for that reason, we probably shouldn't choose him. But are we all agreed Christoph Waltz is probably the best choice for Hans Gruber?
Best and the worst, yeah. Because
exactly.
it was basically your choice that me and Dave knew you were going to pick.
Yeah. Who I initially chose as well.
So I've decided to go for a completely different character, somebody who is also an English actor, also a actor who is capable of being debonair and also potentially quite sinister. And I would choose Benedict Cumberbatch as my Hans Gruber.
Never considered him, to be honest.
No.
Who's up next? Lloyd, you go first.
Well, I was going to guess yours, and after we knew it was Christopher Waltz and you couldn't use it anymore because we guessed it beforehand, I thought you were going to go for Giancarlo Esposito. Anyway, I went for keeping the European theme going from the original Vincent Castle.
It's unusual. So, Dave, who did your choice of Hans Gruber be?
Right, so I did put a lot of thought into this one. I tried to think about the essence of the character and not just kind of like physical kind of attributes. I've got a few names here. I've got three. So I felt ultimately, I don't know why, I felt ultimately that it was important to have another English actor play Hans Gruber and kind of do it in a slightly hammy way, but like an actor that was of sufficient pedigree that they could actually pull it off.
Idris Elba.
No. And hopefully you'll see why I chose the person I did. And I will also say that, this has to be understood in terms of the fact that this would never happen. This could and would never happen. This guy could never play Hans Gruber in a remake, but I feel like he would be good. If we were going back to when the movie was originally made, if this was this actor's first role and he was an unknown and he did it, I think he would absolutely nail it, but he couldn't do it now. So my choice is Sacha Baron Cohen.
Nice.
So the runners up on my list were Domhnall Gleeson,
cool.
Yeah, I thought he could make a good Hans Gruber. And then the kind of left field choice, possibly a little bit predictable because the whole villain connection was Adam Driver.
Right. He could work.
Not impressed. I thought I'd nailed that one, to be honest.
You've been watching the Great Movie Show. This was our first ever episode. Welcome to the party, pal. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed putting it together too. Our next episode, episode 2, will be Blade Runner in all of its various guises. Thank you. Please remember to like and subscribe. It leaves one more thing for me to say, which is thank you to my co-host this evening. Thank you to Lloyd. And also thank you to Dave.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
It's a wrap.